So guys, today we are going to discuss one of the important mandatory concept when it comes to real-time application development, that is token-based authentication using JWT. So we will discuss what exactly token-based authentication, why we need token-based authentication in ASP.NET Core Web APIs, right? Why security is important in Web APIs. We'll also discuss what exactly JWT and how it works internally. We'll also understand the three important concept, right, which is related to JWT. I mean, you can say that JWT is going to be composed of three things: header, signature, and payload. How that header part is constructed, how that payload part is constructed, why signature is very, very important, right? We'll also discuss how it is going to be work typically, right? Typically, how JWT authentication work in a client server architecture. We'll also discuss what is the difference between a basic authentication and the JWT authentication, and how modern APIs, right, modern applications, right, prefer to use JWT over basic authentication. And finally, we are going to discuss how to implement JWT authentication as per the industry standard and best practices. So basically, we are going to create separate authorization servers. We are going to create a separate client application. We are going to create separate resource server. So how exactly you need to develop in a real-time application, that is what we are also going to going to develop in today's application. See, so why security is important, we have already discussed. So because whenever we are developing any kind of application or any kind of a project or any kind of a product we are developing, it is basically dealing with the data. Data means what? It might be user data, it might be your financial information, it might be your business operations. Also, it might be going to contain some analytical data, reporting data, right? And at the same time, administrator they wants to perform different operation, customer they want to perform different operation, seller they want to perform different operations, right? So whenever I'm saying different operation means what? Now, some of the endpoint we need to define which needs to be accessed by user. As a normal customer, for example, if you take the application of uh, right, you can take the application, any e-commerce application like Amazon, Flipkart. So we are the customer. So the endpoint what we are accessing, that might not be accessible by the seller who is selling the product. That might not be accessible by the admin who is going to be the administrator. So we need to define the endpoints which are specific to customer, which are specific to seller, which are specific to, right, what I can say, admin. Some delivery partner is there, so they can access some, right, endpoint which might not be accessible to customer and admin. So basically, some of the endpoint might be accessed by more than one type of a user. Some of the endpoint they are created specific for admin. Some of the endpoints are created specific for the customer. So that is what we need to develop in our application. But why? Why we are going to do all these things? If we are not providing security, then what problem we are going to face? First of all, unauthorized access, right? Attacker may call protected endpoint directly. Suppose you are not providing any kind of, what I can say, restriction. As a customer, I can access every endpoint. As a seller, I can access every endpoint. As a right admin, I can access every endpoint. That is not the right good programming approach. For example, if as a customer I place the order, and as a customer, I update the order status as a paid, but I have not make the payment. So that unauthorized access means it can completely destroy your data. So whatever operation you want, you can perform, which might not be intended for you. Secondly, data breaches, right? So it is very common that some of the database they might be compromised, right? Or some of the sensitive information, you can say personal information, financial information, health related information, some confidential information, they can be leaked, right? This can result in a legal consequence, compliance violations, right? Financial resource, financial loss. So basically it can completely damage to your product, right? Your right, the trust, most importantly trust. If once you don't have right, once you lose the trust means you have lose everything. So how we can manage this thing? By providing security, right? Our application should right secure. So our application should be in secure that we can trust the data. See, if your business logic is hampered, that is fine. But if your data is hampered, if your data is exposed, then everything is lost. So that what we need to provide restriction, that there should not be any data breaches, right? So again, many kind of attacks starting from DOS, DDoS, right, brute force attack. So many kind of attacks are happening nowadays, right? And if you want to avoid such kind of attacks, that means you have to provide best security that is available in the industry as of today. And one of such red security is authentication and authorization. See, if you are not providing security, then unauthorized access may be hacker bypass security access the data breaches, sensitive informations are leaked, service abuse and attacks, right? Many kind of attacks like DDoS, brute force, thus, right? Many attacks might be happening to your application, and finally, your reputation and legal risks. Right, so you have to give high penalty, right? Right, some legal action might be taken over your company or your product. So, if you want to handle all these things, means what? You have to provide security. If you are not providing security, then you might get all these kind of issues in real time. Clear? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes.
And for implementing this, we are going to, right, for handling this thing, what we need two things. What are the things? Authentication, authorization. Authentication, who are you? Show me your identity. I will verify whether you are a valid user or not. Authorization, yes, I know you are a valid user, but let me check, do you have right access to that particular resource or not? So these two things we need to implement in our application, right? So let us proceed and understand this thing. Right? Let us proceed and understand this thing. Okay. So, what is JWT based token authentication? Let us try to understand. See, so JWT based token authentication means what? It is a self-signed token. Sir, it is a self-signed token which is going to be generated by the authentication server, and that token can be trusted by the resource server. So it is compact, means URL safe and lightweight. It is going to contain user information only which are required by the resource server. It is not going to put every information, only those information which are required. Those information it is going to contain. It contain rates. I mean, you can consider if you are requiring the user ID, username, email ID, what are the associated role. So these are the data which are going to be stored in the form of claims, and it is digitally signed using a secret or a private key. So that key can only be known to the server. That key cannot be exposed to the client. That key is not going to be shared in each and every request. That is going to be stored in the server. Server will use that key to generate the token. Resource server going to use that key to validate the token. That key is not going to be, right, what I can say. Uh, that key is not going to be shared to the client. Again, it sends right in each and every request. First of all, we will provide one login endpoint, and to that login endpoint, the user is going to pass the username and password, or whatever the login mechanism you implemented. It will check whether the username password are valid or not. If valid, then it is going to create that self-signed token. And that self-signed token, JWT token, or you can say access token, will be returned to the client. So once the client receives the token, then what exactly it is going to do? Now, for the request for which endpoint authentication and authorization is required, we will pass that token in the authorization header. The server now will check that token, and it is going to verify whether that token is valid, whether that token is issued by the trusted issuer, whether that token is intended, rated for this particular client, whether that token is not hampered, whether that token is not expired, right? Whether this and all this validation it is going to do using the same signed key which is being used by the authorization server to generate the token. If everything is fine, then it will allow the user to access the resources, otherwise not. So what is JWT? Now JWT stands for JSON Web Token, is a compact URL safe token pass along with each request after login. So once the login is successful, then in further in each and every request, you need to pass that token. So how it is going to be work, I will show you. Right. So before that, let us try to understand the token, how the token is looks like, and how it is going to be created. Right. So now, if you visit this jwt.io, then you will see, right? Then you will see that token is something like this. So you will see the token is something like this. So here you can see this is the first part. This is the second part, and this is the third part. So here you can say the token, the JW token is going to be look something like this, and the token is created uh, right using three different mechanism. And here you can see one is the header. So you can see the first part is nothing but your header. The second part you can see this is the payload. So what is header, what is payload? I'm going to explain in some time. This is going to be payload. And the third part is going to be the signature. So this is going to be the signature. So the token is going to be composed of three things. You can see one is header, one is payload, and one is signature. Let us try to proceed and understand what is right a header and what is a payload and what is a right what I can say signature. The JWT header tells the server how the token was created. So the JWT header tells the server. Server means what? It is going to tell the resource server, or it is right. It is going to tell the resource server, hey, Mr. Resource Server, the token is being created using this algorithm. It's HS256. So other algorithms are also available, right? Where I can show you the algorithm. Right, so HS 384, HS521 to RS algorithm, right? So different algorithms are there. So this token is generated using which algorithm? That what you need to specify in the JWT header. And the type means this algorithm is specifically used for what type of authentication. This is for JWT authentication. So the header going to tell the server how the token was created. The type here specifically JWT going to tell that this is going to be a JWT token. You cannot change this value. This is fixed key. And the algorithm going to tell how the right how the token is being generated. I mean, what algorithm being used internally to generate the token. So it can be HMAC, right, HS256, RS256, right? So that's what it is going to tell. So HS256 means what? Now it is going to be HMAC cross SAR256. It is going to use a symmetric key. So can anybody tell me what is the difference between a symmetric key and a asymmetric key? So this is nothing but one, you can say one hashing algorithm. So this right symmetric key means what? Now a single key is going to be used. The same key it is going to use for generating the token. The same key it is going to use for validating the token. And in case of a asymmetric key, there will be two key. One key is going to use to sign, right, sign the token. I mean, for creating purpose. Another key is being used for validating the token. So whatever the algorithm you used, if you are going with the right HMAC plus SAR256 or SAR512, it will make use of a symmetric key algorithm. Symmetric key means you have to use a single secret key. If you are going with a RSA algorithm, right here, RSA and SAR256. So in case of RSA, it is going to make use of a asymmetric key. Asymmetric key means you have to use a two key, one public key, another private key, right? So that's what you need to understand. So basically, the header is going to tell what algorithm being used to generate the token. So here you have to specify what is the algorithm type, and this algorithm type is specifically used, right, for what type of a token. So it is going to be JWT token. Clear?
Yes,
Clear,
sir.
guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The second part is going to be payload, right? So payload means what? Payload is nothing but, if you remember, in basic authentication, we discussed something called claims. What are the claims? Claims are nothing but user information. So it can be your user ID, username, it can be your roles, it can be your email address, it can be your assigned roles, right? These are nothing but claims. And at the same time, right, that claims is also classified into two types. Sir, what are the two types? One is registered claims, another one is custom claims. Registered claims means what? Now these claims type are already defined within the application. The intention is already clear. Suppose you are using ISS claim. ISS means who issued the token, means your authentication server. Subject means the identity of the user, that is the user ID, email, username, whatever is unique in your database related to the customer, so that username. Odd means audience. Audience is nothing but client application for which this token is being created. EXP means expiration time, when the token is going to be expired. So, for example, you can specify this token validity is 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, right? How long the token is going to be valid, that's what you need to specify. I8 means issued at. Suppose means what? Now, when the token was issued, suppose the token was issued at the 2050. 2050 means 850, right? And you specify that expiration time is 30. That means after 910, after 920, that token is going to be invalid. And this is JTI, means it is a unique ID for the token, right? And this is specifically used for a token, right, revocation scenario. What is token revocation? All these things we are going to discuss. So these are some of the built-in claims, and some of the custom claims you can also define, like role, right? Whatever the associated roles, any permissions, right? Any custom data, whatever you want to store. For example, session ID, client ID, whatever, right? All these things, if you want to store, you can store within the claim. But guys, remember, only store those informations which are required. Why? Now, if you are storing more and more claims to the token, or you can say more and more payload, if you are adding more claims to the payload, that token size is also going to be increased automatically. If you don't need one claim in the resource server or anywhere else, then why you should add that claim? So only add those informations which are required for client or customer identification. Unnecessary things you should not. Clear? Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes.
right.
Right? So this is going to be your second part, that is claim. And the third part is going to be the JWT signature, right? The JWT signature. So this JWT signature is nothing but, you can consider it is a right, secret key, right? Client secret. So whatever the secret key you want to use for generating the token, so that secret key is going to be contained, right, within the JWT signature, right? So for example, right, for example, if and that secret key is going to be used by your algorithm. For example, if you are using HS256, and for this HS256, how many secret key you need? You need a single secret key, right? And that the secret key you need to specify here. How? Now, whatever your HMAC algorithm you are using, so to this algorithm, what you need to do? First of all, you need to specify your right header. So this is my header, and which type of data is this? This is a JSON object. Payload, this is also a JSON object. So what you need to do? Now, first of all, you need to convert this JSON into a base64 encoded string. So why? Because they are URL string. So whatever your right header, that what you need to convert into base64 JSON string. Whatever your payload, that what you need to convert into base64 JSON string. So once you convert that, then that HMAC signature is going to be generated, right? How it is going to generated? Now the base64 URL encoder dot whatever your base64 payload, right? And then you have to provide the secret key. So this dot this comma secret key, this is going to be your signature, right? And once this signature is generated, again you have to convert that into base 64 encoded. And once you converted this also into base 64 encoded, then this base 64 encoded dot this payload encoded dot this signature encoded, that is nothing but your JWT token. So this is nothing but a header means what? The base 64 encoded string. So this value you have to encode, and that encoded value is going to be this one. Payload means whatever the claims you want to store. That base 64 encoded is going to be this one. Signature means what? Now you have to decide what algorithm you are using. HMAC RSA. Yes, I'm using HMAC. Sorry, SAR256, right? HMAC, I'm using HMAC. Then I need a single secret key. But how I can specify that secret key? Now, whatever the base 64 encoded value dot this value plus that secret key is going to be the signature, and whatever value is generated, again I have to convert that into base 64 string. So once this part is generated, then combining these three parts separated by dot is nothing but your JWT token. So if someone asks you What exactly the JWT token contains? Contains three parts. One is header, payload, and signature. Header is going to decide what algorithm is being used and the type. Type is always going to be JWT as we are going to generate JWT token. That algorithm can be HMAC and RSA. If it is using HMAC, then one secret key we need to use. For RSA, we need to use two secret key, one private, another public. So and whatever the value that JSON we need to convert it into base64 string. Payload is nothing but all the claims what we want to store in the token. Again, that payload JSON we need to convert into base64 string and signature. So the signature part is going to be created based on the algorithm. So if it is RSA, then whatever the base64 header plus base write 64 payload dot the secret key that is going to write form the signature, and that signature again we need to convert into base64 URL string. Combining these three parts is nothing but your JWT token. So this is my header, this is my payload, and this is going to be my signature. Clear?
Yes. What
Is
is the use of dot?
so without dot, how you can separate these three things? So basically, if I'm not putting this dot, then can you tell me which is going to be my header, base 64 encoded string, which is going to be my right payload JSON string, which is going to be my signature? Are you
Okay.
getting my So we need to differentiate. So if it is going to be a
Yes.
single string, then how I can identify what is the header, what is the payload, what is the signature? Because we also need to generating this token is fine, but again we need to validate this token, right? Whether the token contain all the appropriate information or not. For validation purpose, we need to split, we need to check it, right? And for that purpose, we are providing this dot operator to separate these three parts. Clear?
Hi, Pranay, I have one question.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes,
Hello.
please.
Yeah, so I joined just now. So can you tell me how the signature we will create for the token? So it will be
See,
base 64 encoded, but which string we have to
let me tell you. So you know this base 64 encoded string header part and payload is clear.
Yes, yes, yes,
So basically, this is also going to be one JSON object, right? So basically,
yes,
you need to create one string. So you know how to create a string.
yes, yes,
So header. So whatever the base 64 right header dot payload right comma this right the secret key here.
yes,
So this is going to be a string. So
yes.
header dot payload comma secret key. This is going to be a string. So this string we need to again write into the base 64 encoded URL. So I have already shown this thing now,
No, I
right? So
joined just now, so yeah.
so base 64. So header base 64 URL header. I mean base 64 encoded string of the header, base 64 encoded string of the payload plus the secret.
Yeah, my question was secret key. How from where we have to we will take the
This
secret key?
see this is our secret key that system is going to know. We are not going to share the secret key with the client. How to generate this secret key, I'm going to tell practically. But this secret
Okay,
key means you have to remember this is a 32-bit or 64-bit unique hash value, right? That is only known to the server. That is not going to be exposed to the client or any kind of applications. Only where it is being generated, where the token is being validated, they are only going to know the secret key.
okay,
Clear?
okay. So server will be going to create the secret key. Okay, yeah,
Yes, yes, server only. It is not
okay,
going to share to the client.
okay,
That is the signature both three. If combining the both three, it will
Yes, yes.
be the signature.
Yes, it is this HMAC method. It is going to return me a string, right? And that string I need to do base 64 encoded.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this algorithm, this signature, this method, whatever I'm providing this information, it is combining all this thing. It will give me one value, and that value I need to convert into base 64 encoded, and that is going to be the third part. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So it will return me a string. I need to convert that string into base 64 URL encoded. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
yes.
Okay, so this is going to return me something like this, right? So internally, this method is going to return me a JSON string, sorry, base64 URL encoded. That is going to be the third part. So final is going to be header, not payload, not a signature. This is going to be the right final JWT token. So let us try to understand how it works in real time. Guys, remember, whenever you are implementing JWT authentication in a real-time application, your resource server are going to be different, your authorization server is going to be different. In authorization server, you might be using identity. Without using identity, that is also fine. So we are also going to discuss how we can manage all these things manually. So that client application can be your mobile application, desktop application, it can be your Android application, web application, any third-party web services, anyone, client can be anyone. And this is going to be my authorization server. This is going to be my resource server. So basically, to implement JWT authentication, to understand how JWT authentication works, at least three packages are going to be involved. So one is authorization server, one is resource server, another one is client. So let us proceed and understand what is the role of each component and how these components are going to be work together. Client we know. Android application, iOS application, web application, desktop application, IoT application, any kind of other web services, right? That is going to be the client. Authorization server means what? This is the server which is going to take the responsibility of generating the token. So to authorization server means it is going to generate the token. So basically, any user registration is happening, you have to do that in the authorization server. You want to generate the token, you have to do that in this right authorization server. I mean, what I can say, register, login, log out, change password, forget password, right, get the access token based on the refresh token, revoke the token, right. All these things are going to be managed by the authorization server. And this server is only going to deal with the user data, nothing else, nothing more. Nothing less, right? It is going to deal with the user data. For example, you are having one user table, so user address table. So how you are going to manage the user data, that is going to be handled within the authorization server. Again, if you take the real-time e-commerce application, then we can have multiple resource servers. So we can have a resource server for product. We can have a resource server for order. We can have a resource server for payment. We can have a resource server for notification. So we can have different resource servers. So that is what you can see. We are going to have one authorization server. We can have multiple clients, and we can have one or more resource server. If you are going with the monolithic based architecture, within a single resource server, you can put order related API endpoints. You can put right, what I can say, order product related endpoints, payment related endpoints. Going to put within a single resource server project. If you are going with the microservices based architecture, then for each module, you can have a different separate resource server project. You can have order API, you can have a separate order API, you can have a separate notification API, separate payment API, separate product API. So that is going to be different, right? So, right. So what we are going to do, we are going to generate one authorization server. We are going to generate two resource server. One is to perform the operation on the product, another to perform the operation on the order. And for authorization server, the database is going to be different. For resource server, each resource server having its own database, right? Now, how the communication is going to be takes place between client and our application. First of all, the client wants to get the token. And for getting the token, then what the client needs to do, he needs to communicate with the authorization server. And the authorization server going to return me two things. One is access token, another one is refresh token. Sir, what is access token and what is refresh token? So access token is the token that what you need to pass to get the data from the resource server. So here, okay, for time being, let's forget this refresh token. So from your client application, you send a request, let assume to the login endpoint of the authorization server. The authorization server verify your credential. The authorized server check whether the credential are valid. Then he will generate one access token, and that access token it will return to the client. Along with the access token, it is returning a refresh token. But refresh token you can consider it is a unique string, right? For time being, just remember that is going to be unique string. So once the client get this access token and refresh token, then the client going to call this resource server. Right? You have one resource server, two resource server, five resource server, doesn't matter. So whatever the resource server, for each resource server, the client is not going to generate separate token. The same token the client can use to call the product resource server, to call the order resource server, to call the payment resource server. Now the client further, any subsequent request for which endpoint authentication and authorization is required, it will pass that access token in the authorization header. Then the resource server, before giving access, right, before executing the endpoint, it will check whether this access token is valid or not. If the access token is valid, it will check the roles and permission. So whether does this user have permission to access that particular endpoint or not. If it has access, it will execute. Otherwise, it will return error. Right now. Now sometimes, let's remember, this access token validation is going to be very limited. Limited means what? Now it can be 15 minutes or it can be maximum 30 minutes. But this refresh token validation, it can be days, it can be months, it can be weeks also. So let us assume our access token validation is what I can say, uh, 30 minutes, and refresh token validation is 7 days. So what happening now? Once you got the access token, the client accessing the resource server. So after 30 minutes, that access token is going to be expired. So once that access token is expired, then the resource server is going to return me what error? 401. So once the client got the 401, then after 30 minutes, do I need to ask the user, hey, Mr. User, please enter your username and password again? Is that a good approach? Every 30 minutes, once the user surfing, browsing my website, and every 30 minutes, do I need to ask the user to enter the username and password again and again?
No.
No.
Then what exactly we need to do? Now internally, once we get this 401 from the resource server, then the client is going to check, right? This client going to make use of this refresh token. So using this refresh token, internally, it will send a request to the authorization server. This refresh token, along with this unique ID, we need to store what is the user ID in the database. And based on the user ID, again, we need to generate a new access token, new refresh token. That's what we need to return to the client. And again, once the client gets the new access token, again, he will access my resource server resources. So this refresh token is basically meant for generating a new access token. So to get the access token, we have two options. Either you can pass the username and password, or you can pass the refresh token, right? And this is how it is going to work in real-time applications. Clear?
Sir, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sir, authorization server is inbuilt in the application or how, sir? There
We are
available
going to
authorization
create
server.
nothing is built in. We need to create this application. How to
Okay.
create? I'm going to show you.
Sir, a refresh token if expired, then sir, again we log in. If refresh
Obviously, so what is the validation? 7 days. So suppose you access the application every 30 minutes when you are getting a new access token,
okay, okay.
again you are getting a new refresh token, right? If you access, if you right, you access right, getting the access token using refresh token, it will work like this. But let assume 7 days you have not logged in. That means that the refresh token is not refreshed in the database. So after 7 days, right, again, right, that refresh token is expired. So you can ask the user to sign in again. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, are you saying like suppose if my access token is get expired, so client can use refresh token to regenerate the access token, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Right? Otherwise, see, if you are not implementing this mechanism, then I have to ask the client, hey, please provide your username and password in every 30 minutes. That is not feasible and that is not recommended at all in real-time applications. Clear?
Yes,
Yes.
but
Yes.
instead of waiting for 401, can we get the access token before expiring 30 minutes in the clients instead
Yeah,
of
you can.
waiting for something?
Yes, 100%. Why? Now, because right, whenever I'm returning this access token and a refresh token, I'm also going to return the expired time when this token is going to be expired. So in the client application, you can check whether the time is expired. If expired, you can write instead of this, you can access this authorization. So that is also possible. That is how we are going to implement. So not only we are
So
going to return access token, refresh token, we are also going to return, right, when this token generated and when this token is going to be expired. So that expiration time within the client application, you can check if it is expired, you can immediately, right, make a request to the authorization server to get the access token.
and how are we going to keep the refresh token safe since it is
It is the responsibility of the client application, right? Any secure storage mechanism, right? That what you need to use on the client side to store the refresh token, right? And for different kind of right, what I can say, client application, you have to use, right? For example, if you are using right web apps, right? If you are using web application, then you need to use a secure HTTP only cookies, right? In the cookies, which is going to store the data on the browser, there only you need to store. And if you are using mobile application, right, then you have to use this one, iOS keychain, Android key store, and that is not our responsibility. That is going to be handled by the red team who is working on the front end. If you are working in Angular, then you know how to store this ready token securely. If you are working with the iOS or Android application, then you should know how I can store this refresh token securely in the client side, right? But if
okay?
you are working with if you are working with any web application, right? For example, you are consuming these services from another services. Then if you are having database, that is also the best part, best place. But this
So when
database is not available for Android, iOS, or web applications. So they need to find a better way to store this, right?
so when
Securely.
we implement authorization server, we give this refresh token that is attached to user or generic.
And that is what depend on the type of application what you are developing. So it is
Okay.
specific to user. Right? For
Yeah, yeah.
example, right? For example, if you logged in your application, then that
Mhm.
refresh token, what you are getting, that is related to your credential, not my credential. That is specific to user. So this access token is specific to user means that refresh token is associated to a particular user.
Yeah, when subsequently when we request for access token, so we check whether this is valid uh, refresh token
Yes,
as well
whenever,
as
see, again, guys, remember, so whenever I'm sending any request, along with the refresh token, I also need to specify what is my client ID and the client secret. Right? So
okay,
the
okay,
client means what type of application? Web application, separate client ID, client secret. Mobile
okay,
application, separate client and client secret. So this
okay,
client
okay.
ID and client secret we need to pass.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Thank
That
you.
is going to do the client validation. Refresh token, it is going to check whether it is valid or not. If it is valid, what this token is associated with the user, and based on the user data, it is going to generate a new access token and return. So all these
Yeah,
things we are going to implement as per the industry standard and the best practices. Clear?
yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Right.
Thank
So
you.
till now, anyone having any more question
Sir,
before
one
me?
question.
Yes,
Since we
please.
are sending refresh token to the client, so refresh token, are we going to store in our database also?
Yes. Without storing in the database, how you can check whether this token is valid, whether this token is being used, whether this token is being revoked, whether and how you can identify this token is related to which user. So this information from where you will get if you are not storing this refresh token in the database. Yes, we are not going to store the access token. 100% we are going to store the refresh token.
Okay, sir, got it.
Right. So anyone else having any more question, guys?
That symmetric key, asymmetric key you said, right? Uh,
So you know what is the difference between a right symmetric algorithm and asymmetric algorithm?
yeah, it's I know that it's symmetric uses one key for both signing and again validating, but whereas asymmetric we use public private key.
Yes,
Uh, like you said three, two, like symmetric we use H. The key start with H's, right? Is there
correct.
any the names has any meaning that H's?
No.
The
See, HS means HMAC SAR 256. So HS means HMAC SAR 256.
okay.
RS means it is going to be different, right? RS means
So
it is a right. It is going to use RS algorithm. H means it is going to use HMAC algorithm, right?
so
You know what?
RC is a like asymmetric and HC is a symmetric.
Exactly. RS means asymmetric and HMAC is symmetric, right? Behind the scene, right? It is going to use one key, and in case of RS, it is going to use two key.
Okay.
So clear?
Yeah. Other than that, there is no difference, right? The key related. So we specify what key to be used while.
No. See, definitely there is a difference, yes, right? When to use which key, what is the use of asymmetric, what is the use of
Yeah.
asymmetric, how much of a data you can transfer, right? That is going to be very completely, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes. Yes.
that will take another 2 hour session to make you understand
Yeah.
difference between symmetric and asymmetric. But for time being, most of the time, whenever we are developing, right, any kind of web application, using JWT means we are going with the symmetric key concept because we are not going to share right this key secret key to the client, and that burden we don't want to take at all. We want to use one key because that token generation, token validation, both are going to be handled by our application. We are not going to right deal with the client application for any kind of this. Only client will get the token, client will send the token. So for that purpose, this symmetric key is more than sufficient. Clear?
Okay. So in case if we are developing UI, we use asymmetric. That's what you're saying.
No, sir, that is completely different. So what I can
Okay.
tell you is, for time being, just forget about this, right, difference. Because what I'm saying, to make you understand, it will take another 2 hour session, difference
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
symmetric and
Yeah.
asymmetric.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Yeah. Fine.
Because without giving real-time scenario, without saying how it is being implemented, how it is being worked internally, right, you will not get clarity. I will take
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely
Fine.
one session to make you understand how HMAC authentication is happening, what is encryption, decryption, what is symmetric encryption, asymmetric encryption, right? All these things
Mm.
we are going to discuss in our coming days, right? But
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
now,
Sure.
just remember we are going to make use of symmetric right algorithm. So
Yeah.
let
Sure.
us proceed and understand, right, how we are going to work with this application, right? So basically, what happening now in my application, this token generation is going to be done within the client application, sorry, within the authentication server, right? That token generation, so generating the access token is going to be done within the right, what I can say, authentication server. But that token is going to be validated in multiple resource server. That means what? Now, again, within the authentication server, I also need to validate some of the endpoint, right? For example, if the user wants to change the password, if the user, right, wants to, right, what I can say, do some kind of operation for which authentication and authorization is required. Then in that case, token is also going to be validated in the authorization server. Again, I have a multiple resource server. Then the token is going to be also validated in a multiple resource server. Then that token registration logic, token validation logic, right? Do I need to repeat in all these server, authorization server and multiple resource server? If you are having 2 or 5 or 10 resource server, so 10 resource server plus one authorization server. Do I need to repeat the same logic again and again in all these places? Is that a good programming approach?
Mm.
So what is the best approach? We need a reusable way. Then if you want to implement that token right logic, right? Token logic means token validation logic. See, token generation is going to be within the authorization server, but that token validation, that what we need to implement in such a way, it should be used in multiple server. Then what is the best way? Create one class library project, implement the logic, and call that class library project and refer to the class file wherever you need such logic. So let us proceed and first create one, right, it is common shared project where, right, it is going to handle all these things, right? So first of all, what I'm doing, please observe, I'm creating one blank solution. So within this solution, I'm going to create a 4 project. One is a shared library project. Another one is authentication server. Another one is going to be my another 2 resource server. So first of all, create this blank solution. So here you can see blank solution is there. select this one, provide the solution name as my e-commerce. Any name you can give. I'm giving my e-commerce. Click on this create button. So now you can see the solution is created, but within this solution, there is no project. And to this solution, let me start with one shared class library project. I'm giving the project name as a JWT auth.shared. So any name you can give. This is going to my shared library project. Whatever name you like, right, you can give. So let me go ahead and create one library project. I'm giving this JWT.shared. So all the JWT related configuration, it is going to create. I'm using .NET 8 right, because we started this course with .NET 8. So let me go ahead and create this one. Okay. So whatever the auto-generated class file, please delete this one. So now to work with JWT authentication, we need one package. So this package is going to provide how to register JWT services. This package is going to provide how to handle authentication, how to handle 401 error, how to handle 403 error, right? The kind of things, many things you need to implement. And to use those things right within our application, we need to install this Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.authentication.bearer package, right? And again, this package you need to install in each and every project, authentication server and all the resource server where you need JWT validation. So why should I install this package in again and again at multiple projects? So I can install this package within my shared project, right? Shared class library project. So go ahead and install this one. So this is going to be my shared class library project. So within this project, I have a install .NET 8. So as I'm developing the application using .NET 8, I'm installing JWT Bearer 8 version, which is compatible with .NET 8. So once we install this, right, then what I need to do, I need to create some option classes, right? So basically what I'm going to do, so JWT related settings, refresh token related settings and the common settings which are required in all the project in the sense it can be authentication server, resource server, everywhere. Then those settings, right, I need to read from the app settings.json file. And what I want to use, I want to map those keys, right, in a strongly typed manner. For example, guys, tell me, if you are having some settings within the app settings.json file, and if you want to map that section to a strongly typed .NET object, then what pattern you need to use?
Option pattern.
Options pattern. Then for options pattern, you need to create similar structure of classes, which is very similar to your app settings.json section name and keys. Am I right? So whatever the key you define, accordingly, you need to define the property name. For example, so now what I need to do, now in my JWT section, I'm going to create within the app settings.json file, I'm going to create some section JWT where I'm going to have an issuer, right, who issued the right token, audience for whom this token is being issued, sign in key, what is the secret key being used to generate the token, and how long this token is going to be valid. So this information I need to define within the app settings.json file. So from where I'm going to read the setting, then for this JWT section, I'm going to create a class file. So whatever the key name, that is going to be the property name, audience, you can see audience, sign in key, guys, remember the same sign in key that what I'm using here for generating the token, the same key I need to use for validating the token, and access token in minutes. So this is one of the class file that what I'm creating, and this class file going to read the settings from the app settings.json file, and this class file is going to be used in all the project. So best option, create this class file within the right, what I can say, shared project. So first of all, let me create one within this project. Let me go ahead and create a folder. That folder name is going to be options. So within this options folder, let me start with the JWT settings class file. So I'm going to make use of options pattern to read the settings from the app settings.json file, and this is going to contain 4 properties, and the use of these 4 properties we have already discussed. So who issued the token, to whom this token is being issued, what is the sign-in key. So this sign-in key is nothing but the for example, for RSA, it's my right. So what is that key, that what we need to provide, and again how long this token is going to be valid. So that is configurable, and that can be changed. If you change this value in the upsetting.json file, that value it will take into consideration, but the default timing is going to be 15 minutes. Clear? Guys, give me 1 minute. So guys, this class is clear to everyone why we are creating this class?
Yes.
Right. Then the another class we are going to create for the refresh token, and how long that refresh token is going to be valid. So that's what we need to configure. Again, that what we are going to define within the upsetting.json file within a section called refresh token, and one property is going to be there, one key is going to be there, there to expire. So the refresh token validity is going to be 14 days. That is configurable. So what I'm going to do, I'm also going to create another class file, right, and that is going to be refresh token settings. So this is going to contain, right, only one property, days to expire. So this is also going to be bound from the settings.json file. Then I'm going to create one JWT or shared options class. So basically, whatever options are required, right, which you want to share, so that's what I'm going to define. Let me first create the class file. Then I'm going to tell you what are these properties is all about, right? So basically, require HTTPS metadata. So basically, whenever you are generating the token, or whenever you are validating the token, you want to say, right, is this token, the request is using HTTP or HTTPS. So basically, here you can enforce if the request coming using HTTP protocol, then my application should handle that, otherwise it should not handle. So you need to explicitly specify whether it requires HTTP or HTTPS. Save token means what? Once you read the token, once the token is being validated, do you want to save this token in the context object, so that if it required, right, if you want to forward that token, right, from your action method to some downstream services, then you can use that token. So save token means after validating, this token is also going to be saved, saved within the HTTP context. So if you want to save, right within the upsetting.json file, you can set this value to true. If you set this value to false, then that token is not going to be saved right after validation. Clock skew second means what? Right, what exactly it means? For example, the token validation, right, is going to be 30 minutes. Right, the token validation is going to be 30 minutes. So between client and server application, there might be some differences, right? And how much differences you can handle, at what you can specify. For example, I specify 30 minutes after, right, if the token duration, the token validation is going to be end something around 8. Let's assume that token is going to be end, right? Validation is going to be expired in this right time. So let's assume 9:35 minutes 15 seconds. Then to this 15 seconds, it will add additional 30 seconds. That validation it is going to check. So 9:35 and then 47 seconds. So that the second it is going to increase. It is not mandatory, but good to provide, because sometimes what happen, Now, there is a difference between the client time and the server time. That network is also there. The client send the request, right? Within that stipulated time, but when it is received by the server, that the time is expired. So to handle such kind of scenarios, you can provide this ready clock skew seconds. Clear? Clear? Clear, guys?
Could you please repeat it again, sir?
Okay. See, for example, let's assume there is a client, right? The client sending, right? For example, we are having one token, right? That token is going to be expired at 9:30 and you can say 15 seconds. So 9 hours, 30 minutes and 15 seconds. This is the token expire time. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So the client is sending the request at what time? 9:30 and 05. So means this time is at this particular point of time, the token is valid or not?
Valid.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
Valid.
valid.
Right? So while it is transferring over the internet, it took 20 seconds to reach to the server. Then at server, when that token is received,
25 seconds.
9:50.
20 minutes taken, so it will be received by 25. Yes or no?
Yes,
So at this particular time, that token is expired or not?
yes,
Yes,
So
it
when
is.
the client sends the request, it is valid, but when it is received by the server, it is invalid. So this 20-second times what is required, right? What is taken by the right network, that what I want to handle, right? How? Now by providing this clock Q second. As I'm providing this clock Q seconds, so whatever the duration I specified, server is going to check whatever the duration plus 30 seconds, that is going to be 9:30 40 minutes. So the server will consider this is a valid request. Clear?
yes.
Yeah, got it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So shared policies, suppose I'm going to define some policies, admin only, customer only, admin or seller. Do you want this policy to be created in each and every resource server? Some of the resource server, they want only role-based authentication and authorization. They don't want policy. In that app settings.json file, you can set this to false. If you need these policies, you need to set this to true. Enable auth failure logging means what? Now, once the if the token is returning 401, I mean when the authentication is failed, why it is failed, whether the signature is invalid, whether it is expired, whether the token is tampered, right? So that information, if you want to log, you can set this value to true. If you don't want to log, set this to false, right? Then the logger category means where the logging is there, then because this is not going to be a class. So this logger category means we need to provide a class name. So in this case, that category name is going to be JWT bearer auth. So a static name we have provided. And just read JSON serialization. This is the default property which we have already set in the settings that is right within the program.cs class file. But yes, while I'm returning right JSON related custom error messages, right, related to 401 and 403, it is also going to make use of right property naming policy to null. Means what? Now each success it will return as each success. It is not going to make use of a camel case by converting this first character to capital A. So whatever the property name we define, that what it is going to return. So these are the settings. Again, these settings you can override apart from this one, right? This is not going to be override. Apart from these settings, remaining you can override within the app settings JSON file of each project. Clear? Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
These are the three option classes. Again, guys, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to configure my JWT authentication in each project program.cs class file. So here you need to tell what is the authentication scheme, what is the default authentication scheme, right? For this authentication, how the token is being validated. If the token, if there is 401 or 8 challenge, If there is a challenge, then how you can handle the challenge. 403, I mean forbidden. If forbidden, then how you are going to handle. Do you want to log the validation error? So those things you need to repeat in each and every program class. So basically, as a service, right, a service registration needs to be done. So what I'm going to do, that part, that service registration logic, I'm going to create within this shared project so that I can only call that extension method from the program.cs class file, and the remaining logic is going to be common, centralized, and my program class is not going to be really complicated. So let us first create one extension folder. So within this shared project, this is going to my extension folder. And within this extension folder, I'm going to create this class file, JWT Authentication. So let me go ahead and create this one. So this is going to contain the JWT authentication logic, right? Not only authentication, but also validation logic. Everything is going to be contained along with the policies, right? So everything I'm going to define within this class file. So let us try to understand. So first of all, right, I'm going to read my settings, right, from the JWT settings, token setting, and JWT author shared settings. So these three .NET object I need to be populated by reading the data from the app settings.json file. So what I'm doing here, I'm creating three files. So this is going to contain the section name within the app settings.json file. Another is refresh token, and another is going to be JWT. So basically in app settings, you have to create one section for JWT, another section for the refresh token, another one is for the JWT auth share. So this is nothing but your options pattern. You can see this is a extension method. So you can see that class name is going to be static class, that method name is going to be static. The first parameter I created using this object. So means what? Now this method I can call using this iService collection instance. So from the program.cs class file where I'm registering builder.services, then using builder.services, I can call this add JWT auth method. And to this service class, right, I can pass this configuration object, right? Now what I'm going to do, so I'm reading this JWT. So this is required, not required. So here you can see I'm reading this says JWT settings from this section name, the refresh token settings from this section name, and the authenticate shared options from the section name. This section name we need to define within the app settings.json file, and something similar to this one, right? So next what I need to do, now after reading this value, I need to ensure few things are mandatory. What are the things? Now first of all, right, this is JWT section must be there, right? If it is not available, throw the error, right? So that JWT settings, right, it is going to read the value from this section name, and if this value is not available, it is going to throw the error, right? If it is available, then that settings value it is going to read. It is going to check issuer, audience, and sign in key. These keys must be there. If these keys are missing, it will throw immediate error, right? So we should not proceed further. It should throw the immediate error. The sign in key, it is going to be a 32-bit right, base encoded string hash format. So that what I need to convert it into that this is sign in key. I need to convert it into byte array. Then I need to convert that into a symmetric security key. So as we are going to use a symmetric algorithm, we need to create a symmetric key, and the symmetric key means only one key is going to be there. For RSA algorithm, two separate key will be come into the picture. That's what we are not going to discuss at all. So here we are using a symmetric key. Then what we have done, we have read this section, and we populated this JWT settings with all the required properties. Already these properties are there. We just ensure the properties contains the data. Also, whatever the signing key is provided, that what we have converted into a symmetric key. Then what we are doing, we are reading the JWT shared options properties values, and then we are going to check. So this is nothing but your authentication. So basically add authentication. Here we are specifying what is the default authentication scheme. If you remember earlier, we specified basic authentication, and here this is going to be the default authentication. And this authentication scheme, this name is going to be bearer. So here you can see this is going to be my authentication scheme name. If you use this one, that is fine. If you specify this one, this is also fine. So means what? Internally, this is going to return error. And this add JWT authentication, add JWT bearer means what? So by default, this JWT bearer means it is making use of bearer scheme, right? It is internally. So this service making use internally, that scheme name is going to be bearer. So here we are setting, right, whether it should handle this require HTTP metadata or not. If you metadata endpoints require HTTPS, right? If you are not getting request using HTTPS protocol, it is not going to handle. Do you want to save the token into the context object once it read the data? Yes or no? That's what you need to set in the offsetting start JSON file. So these are the parameter, right, which is used for validation, right, guys? Remember, here we are only deciding the validation parameter, not the generation. Generation is how the token is going to be generated. That is going to be defined by the authentication server. Here, how the token is going to be validated, that's what we are going to define. And this is common for all the resource server as well as the authentication server. So how the token is going to be validated? Do you want to validate the issuer? Yes. Do you want to validate the audience? Yes. Do you want to validate the signing key? Yes. Do you want to validate the expire time? Yes. If you are validating the audience, then whatever the value you specified in the issuer and whatever the value is there in the token, that must be matched. If mismatch, then this is not going to consider a valid token. Same in the case of audience, same in the case of a issuer signing key, same in the case of a lifetime. And also we are specifying the clock skew. Clock skew means what? How long you can extend that token expiration. That's what you need to specify. So these are the parameters that it will take into consideration for validating the JWT token. Clear? Clear or not?
Sir, under that, the add JWT parameter like JWT default or authentication schema, you said they string your pass, JWT bearer. That, yeah, yeah.
This is different. See, you have to remember, this add authentication is different, and this add JWT bearer is different. So here you can specify basic authentication. That is also fine. If you are integrated basic authentication, you can specify this. So what exactly this means? What is the default authentication that will come in the picture when your authentication rate middleware will execute? So you attended my last session or not?
Yeah, for basic authentication, I don't know.
So what we have done in basic authentication, we are only doing this thing now. So
Yes.
if you open that project, right, basic authentication. So in this case, we configure it in the program.cs class file. So this is nothing but your default authentication, and that what it will execute, right, when this middleware will execute, right? And the same thing is here. So what is your default authentication? That what you need to specify here. And in this case, right, if you write bearer, that is fine. If you specify this, this is nothing but bearer only. And bearer means this is add JWT bearer means what? This is going to be the JWT authentication. So what is the difference? So in this case, if you look at this, so here we are specifying, right, what is our handler, what is the, right, what is our handler, right? All these things we are manually specifying. And this basic authentication handler code we have written. How to validate all these things we have written. Now with JWT authentication, we don't need to write such complicated logic. We don't need to write such complicated logic which is going to read the header, which is going to decrypt, which is going to do all these things, right? That is not our responsibility. So here what is we are telling that default authentication is going to be this one, right? And internally he know how to validate the token. But how it is going to validate the token, that information we want to provide. So how? Now by using this token validation parameter. So what are the things? See, it might be possible. Suppose you don't want to validate the audience. Okay, set this value to false, no issue. So it is not, right? Whatever the audience you used for creating the token and whatever the audience you specified here, that will never come into the picture. If this values are different, no issue. I'm not going to, right, make the token invalid if the audience are different. Clear? So how the token is going to be validated? Those information I provided. But how it will be validated, what logic is going to be implemented, that already known to this authentication, add JWT bearer. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So I have one question, sir. So
Yes.
yeah, so this is a class library project where we validate the token, right? And this shared library will be used in the resource server, right? So
Of course, yes, resource server plus authentication server. If in authentication server you have some protected endpoints. This is only for
okay,
validation purpose.
okay.
Clear?
So here we have only defined the method, right? But to execute it, we have to call from each resource server, right?
Yes. So this method not call. We just need to call this single method.
But it has to be executed separately in each resource server.
Yeah, obviously. So, for example, some resource server, if any resource server you don't want authentication, why should you call this one? But if you need this logic, you have to call this method. Without calling, how this is going to be registered at the right application pipeline? Clear?
Okay.
And one question, finally, sir. And sir, this will read the app set value from the app setting.json of the resource server, right?
Not only from the resource server, wherever you registered, it might be from the authentication server
Yeah,
also.
yeah. So wherever I have registered from that app setting.json, it will read to yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I need to
Yes.
understand one. Can you go up if you don't mind? Yeah, above 70. Yeah, here the service. So the add authentication, the add JWT bearer, these are all extension method by the framework, right? So we are calling that passing the parameter.
See, this is provided. This is the extension method provided by ASP.NET Core.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
we are.
you have registered. And this add JWT bearer, this is provided by the package what we install.
Oh,
We have installed one package now.
yeah.
This package. So this package. So if you go to the add JWT bearer definition, then you will see this is Microsoft.extension.dependency injection. So JWT bearer extension, right? So they have already provided the implementations. Clear?
Yeah.
Now. So this part is clear. What are the information I need to provide here? Only the token validation parameter, how the token is going to be validated by the server. Those parameters we need to define. And this parameter, it will be used by the framework. I mean this JWT bearer, and he will inspect the authentication, I mean the request token. And it is going to check whether the token is valid or not. And based on the token validation, internally it is going to set the HTTP context.user object. Clear? Clear, guys, how the HTTP context object is created? That's what we have discussed in our previous session. Clear? The logic we have implemented manually, right? Here you can see within our basic authentication handler, right? We are creating the what I can say, right? Claims principal, claims identity. All these things we are creating here or not? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, you took the previous class. Sorry, we didn't attend.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the context, the token generation happening here. That's what you're saying, right? This is.
No. Token generation, I'm not talking. I'm talking whatever the token I'm getting, whether that token is valid or not. If the token is valid, then what it is going to do, it will read the claims which are associated with the token. It is going to generate the claims identity. It is going to generate the claims principal. And that claims principal, it is going to set in the HTTP context.user. That means from the incoming token, right? It is going to read what, see, in this case, what I'm doing all this thing here because I'm reading this information from the database. Right, I'm checking whether the user exists or not, password valid or not. This is basic authentication. And then I'm reading the claims, I'm retrieving the role names, I'm selecting all the claims. So this I'm creating the claims identity, claims principal, authentication token, right? And marking that authentication is success. This is I'm doing manually. And in this case, this is going to be handled by the authentication, right? JWT bearer. So
Oh,
once we provided this information, then for each incoming request, right? For each incoming request, we need to register, right? For each incoming request, we are going to register two right middleware component. One is use authentication, one is use authorization. So as part of the use authentication, it is going to execute that logic. So it is going to execute that token validation logic. Once the token is valid, then it is going to create the claims. It is going to create the claims identity. It is going to create the claims principal. It is going to store that claims principal within the HTTP context data user object. That's it. That is what it is going to do. It is not going to return right. It is not going to return 401 or 403. That is the responsibility of the right use authorization middleware. Use authentication means what? It is going to check whether the token is valid or not. If the token is valid, let me create the HTTP context object with the information related to the user. What information? Now, how the token is being, how the user is being validated, what authentication scheme is it is being used, and what are the associated claims, right, which are associated with the user. That means that list of claims, that is what it is going to store in the HTTP context data user. How it is being validated, what authentication scheme, bearer authentication or basic authentication, is the user authenticated, that each authenticated property, it is going to set it true if that the user is, token is valid. It is going to set false if that token is invalid, or if the user doesn't provide any token. In that case, it is going to set that HTTP context that user object false. At this point of time, there is no information, right? He is not going to return, right? What it is going to, it is not going to tell 401 or 403. So the point that what you need to remember, this huge authentication method, what is the responsibility of this method for each incoming request? For each incoming request, what is the default authentication? What you specified here, that what it is going to execute. In this case, basic authentication. In this case, the default authentication is going to be JWT bearer. And for JWT bearer authentication, default authentication, it is going to get these validation parameters. And based on these validation parameters, it is going to verify whether the token is valid or not. If the token is valid, what it will do? If the token is not valid, if the token is not valid, it is going to mark is authenticated, is going to be false, and HTTP context dot user is going to be null. If the token is validated, what it is going to do? It is going to set how the user is validated. It is validated using the bearer authentication scheme. Each authenticated property, it will set to true. And whatever all claims that are available, right? In this case, you can see that claims, whatever you stored here, those claims are also available within the claims, principal object of the within the claims principal. That is, that claims principal is, see, whenever I'm saying HTTP context user, that is nothing but a claims principal, where you can get all those claims. How to retrieve those claims, right? I will show you from the practical. I'm going to show you how you can retrieve all the claims from the right HTTP context user in some time. These things are going to be happening at this point of time. So where
yeah,
now where
yeah,
this middleware will execute authentication.
yeah. We understand that aspect. You are saying that when that executes, it's setting the claim principal for the HTTP context dot users as a claim principal. So
Yes,
this add labeled bearer is taking bearer token and extrapolate those data and form the claim principal, right?
exactly.
Okay, so can we see the code where it is extrapolating in the extension method of JWT bearer? Because it's a NuGet package, we can't see that, right?
Sorry, what you want to say?
How the add JWT bearer extrapolating the bearer token and forming the claim principles, which we can't
So,
see.
see, that is not right. That source code you have to check in GitHub. That source
Okay.
code is not available here, but you have to
Mm.
check in GitHub. But how it will internally use, that what I have shown you manually, right, in my last session using this
Okay.
basic authentication. Right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
it is going to create the claims, right, instance, right, claims collection, setting this
No, about
whatever.
top, how can you see the bearer token? How are you taking the bearer token and from the request header?
So how I'm going to take means. So that is going to be internally, that is going to be, see, you have to remember. So, okay, let me give you. So in this case, right, if you go to this one, now when this will execute use authentication, so basically it is going to check what is the default authentication for the application. In this case, this is basic authentication. And for this basic authentication, we created this handler. And if you go to the handler, what exactly it is doing, it is checking the authorization header, whether that authorization header is a valid value, whether it is associated with the basic authentication, what are the credential associated, validating the credential right in the database. So all these things are happening, then it is creating the claims. Once the claims is created, it is creating the claims identity, claims principal, creating the authenticated ticket, all these things doing this manually in basic authentication, because for basic authentication they have not provided any library where I can write this logic. But for
Okay.
JWT authentication, right, it is going to done, right, whatever I'm showing within this basic authentication, the same set of things are going to be done internally by this JWT
Yeah.
authentication.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Right. So now, so till now, once we call this authentication middleware, this is what it is going to do, right? It is going to set the HTTP context dot principal objects. But at the same time, you can see I'm attaching some events. So this events means what? Now, based on the outcome of the authorization middleware, based on the outcome of the, in other way, you can consider that authorization middleware going to make use of this on challenge, on forbidden, and on authenticated field. So what do you mean by this? Now, so once this authentication is done, then it is going to set the HTTP context data user object. Then this huge authorization will come into the picture. So this huge authorization, what exactly this, can anybody tell me what this huge authorization will do? Now, this huge authorization will read the endpoint metadata. For example, if you created this controller, so then this controller is associated with any authorized attribute? No. Let assume the controller doesn't associated with any authorized attribute. Then what this authorization middleware is going to do? It is not going to do any kind of authentication and authorization check. So this authorization middleware, guys, remember, this is going to do two things. One is authentication and authorization. So both of these things are going to be handled by this one. So people are having miscommunication that this is going to authenticate and this is going to authorize. No, this authenticated middleware means it is going to authenticate the user, whether the user is valid based on the authentication scheme or not. If valid, it is going to set the HTTP context dot user property. Clear? And then it is going to do the authentication and authorization. If the endpoint, if the action method is only decorated with the authorized attribute, then it is only going to do the authentication check, right? Whether the HTTP context data user is authenticated property is it true or not. If that is true, means user is authenticated, I can give access to the I can give access the user to access the endpoint. But at the same time, if this one, right, if this is not only authenticated, but also some roles are also provided, then in that case, it is going to do first of all authentication that HTTP context dot user must be a valid user. That is authenticated property must be true. Then it is going to do the authorization check. So what role is required for accessing that endpoint? Required administrator. Okay, in the HTTP context dot principal, in right claims principal, whatever roles are associated with this user, is that admin role is there? Yes, it is there. Okay, let me give the user to access the endpoint. No, admin user is required, but the user having only the managerial or seller. Okay, I cannot give access. I can return 403, and if authentication failed, I can return 401. So basically, by default, it is going to return 401 right, error message. By default, 401 and default 403 error message are going to be written by this middleware. But do we want to customize that error message? Yes, I want to customize. Then in that case, what you need to do, you need to override this unchallenged method and you have to override this unforbid method. So on challenge, right? If you remember in basic authentication also, we have discussed this thing. So handle challenge ASIC and a forbidden challenge async. So these two methods we have discussed, which is going to handle the 401, 403 custom error message. In this case, it is going to this unchallenged method. It is going to handle the 401 error message. What error message you want to return, what status code you want to return, what is the content type, that what you can set here. So here, right context dot handle async. So basically, if the framework prepared some custom I mean some default response, okay, please ignore that response. And now whatever I'm providing, please return this response to the customer or to the client. So I'm going to return 401 as the status code. Content type is going to be this one. Any anonymous object I'm creating, whatever the error message you want to return is successful, status this, message this, and then I'm going to convert this into a JSON object, and that JSON I'm writing to the response stream. So whatever the JSON I'm writing, that will come as the default error response for 401. Now the authorization middleware validate that the user is not authorized. I mean that access is denied. So in that case, I can return this error message, right? So that's what I can set here. Now, if the user is authentic, right? I mean, while doing the authentication, let assume in this case on challenge, if the user is not authenticated, I mean that token is invalid, I mean that token is expired, right? If the token is malfunction, right? I mean tampered, then in that case, right? I need to log the error message. But again, if the enable auth failure logging, that option what we are provided, if this value is true, then only I'm going to log. Otherwise, I can return from here. I'm not going to log. And here I'm creating the logger factory using the context of context. I'm requesting for a logger factory instance. Then I'm creating the logger. Then I'm accessing the HTTP metadata like what is the request part, which method, what is the IP address, what is the scheme, what is the all these things, right? I'm putting in the logger so that I can verify why that request is being read. Clear? Clear or not?
Yes, yes.
Right. And finally, using this add authorization services. So this is right for the service registration. And here what I'm doing, I'm creating some policy. So basically authorization means you can create role-based authentication directly. You can specify the role. Also, you can create some policy for example, admin policy. For admin, so I'm creating one policy. For this policy, it is mandatory the user to have the admin role. Customer policy, the user should have the customer role. As client ID, the request should contains this require client claim in the token. Hard session ID, this token SID token should be there. Admin or seller. So for any endpoint where you need both admin or seller, either admin or seller, you can create this policy. Either if the user having this admin role or seller role, then he can access admin and seller. Both role are required, right? Customer with client. The user must be in customer role and user must be having this claim. Then only he can access the endpoints. Sometimes what happened, for example, you are in depth, right? Not now. You can also write some claim related to delete functionality, some claim related to update functionality, create functionality. So that depth you can also implement. But here we are simply defining some claim and based on the policy, right? So based on the policy, we are going to decide, right, whether the user can perform the operation or not by combining role with the claim. If this role and that role are available, and along with the claim, we are creating the policy. And that policy also you can apply to the action method. And for this policy, whatever rules and regulations you define, if those rules and regulations satisfy, then the user can access the right endpoint. So how to apply these policies within the action method? I'm going to show you practical. So this is going to be my custom, right? What I can say. I mean, this is going to my extension method, and this I just need to call this builder dot services and add JWT auth, and I just need to pass this config out. That's it. Clear?
Sir, I have one question here. So can you scroll down? Yeah. So here require role to the require role method you have passed the admin and the customer. So this value of the admin and customer you will take it from the token, right?
Yes. So this will be right. So required role means what? Now in the claim, there must be a role claim. From the role right claim, it will take this value.
Okay.
So required role means what? Now the user must have this role. Required claim means what? The user must have this claim. And both role are right. This role, it is specifically roles, and claim is also. So technically, you can consider role is part of a claim only. So role is also a claim. So here we are specifying role means it is role. Technically, it is also a claim.
Like,
Clear?
is there a role key in the when you say require role, it checks which part of when you say client, there is a client key as a client ID. When you say
Also,
require
what
role,
the client
is there
and
a
client system, they are a different role is going to be different. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to design the authentication server database. You will get more
okay?
clarity. So
Yeah,
how we
yeah,
are
sure.
going to store roles and
Okay.
right, all these things I'm going to discuss.
Yeah,
Clear, guys? Till now?
Okay.
yeah. Can
Okay.
you go up? Yeah, can you come down? I want to see there are two methods in this. Just so there are two extension method in this class, right? Static class.
No. Only one extension method, and the extension method is going to be this one. Add
Oh,
JWT
okay.
auth.
So that is what is so it is all continuous code. Okay, I thought it's a two different method. Can you
No,
expand?
continuous. So
Yeah,
within
yeah,
this red method, I have written all these statements. So these are separate method statement. So it is a method. Within this method, I have written multiple statements.
oh, okay. Okay,
Clear?
got it. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So now this red option pattern, this is service registration, all these things I'm not going to repeat. I just need to call this method from my right server application. That's it. Anyone having
Yeah,
any question, guys?
yeah. One question. You said, can you go to the program.cs where you said use authentication use authorizations? Yeah, here you said use authentication is only a checking the um, the whether the token is there. If it is there, then it extrapolate and set the context, user context, right?
Yes.
But the
Not only
JWT
this,
parent,
it is also going to set is authenticated, right? This property to true or false, right?
okay,
It is also going to set authenticated scheme, how the user is being authenticated, right? I mean, it is using that basic authentication or
yeah.
error authentication. These things are going to be set. Yes, so this is what it is going to set. And
So
this user, it is nothing but your claims principal. User means it is going to be an instance of a claims principal.
is this based on the method which you shown now that add JWT bearer or what basis that use authentication? Based on this method, right? Extension method, the top
Yes,
one.
yes, based on this one. So it
Yeah.
will execute this one, and here it is the scheme. The scheme is going to be bearer. Then where you define the bearer logic, that one it is going to execute. Again, in
So
bearer, right, we have multiple options, right? So here you can consider within this bearer, we are providing all these options, right? And
yeah,
internally, he is going to execute the logic. I mean, what
yeah,
logic to
yeah.
be
But
executed for the token validation, what logic to be executed, right, for returning 401, what logic to be returned, right, in case of a 403, it is going to manage the internally. But that is
yeah,
what
based on
we
the
have.
token, yeah, based on the token validation parameter, it checks whether the
Yes,
use
token is
whether
valid or
the
not.
valid token is valid or not, right? So it is executing whether I decorate the action with authorize or even just
No,
with
no,
just authorize or
this is not
irrespective of that.
related. See, this authentication middleware, this is not related to your action method or decoration. Whether the action method decorated with authorize or not, that doesn't matter in this case.
Okay,
It is going to be executed irrespective of whether the action method is decorated with authorize or not.
okay,
It's going to execute 100%. It is going to set HTTP context data user to write it null if right if there is no token or if the token is invalid. If token is there, token is valid, then it is going to set that up.
Yeah,
Whether
based on
the
the
action method decorated with the authorized attribute, roles attribute, or policy, that what will come into the picture when it is going to execute this authorization middleware.
yeah, when there is a just authorized and authorized with the role. Authorized with the role, I understand it checks whether that token has a corresponding role. When it is
Hey,
just
you have to
authorized,
remember. See, authorized attribute means what, right? Authorized attribute means what I'm saying. This is going to do both authentication and authorization. First, it will check whether the user is valid or not. All the from this HTTP context object, a contexted user, he will know that user is valid. That is authentication is done. Then it is going to check what authorization policies are applied. Then whether that policy is satisfied based on this claims principle. That's
yeah,
what it
yeah.
is also going to do.
Yeah, my question is, assume that there is two action. One action doesn't have any authorized attributes. The second action has authorized with just empty
See, don't worry,
parentheses.
right? All the scenarios I'm going to take. I hope you
Okay.
have not attended my previous session.
Yeah.
Did you attend my previous session?
No. First
See,
session.
I'm going to discuss allow anonymous, no authorized attribute. Authorized attribute, no roles attribute. Authorized with roles attribute. All the scenarios I'm going to show you practically.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Right? Clear, guys, till now?
Yes, sir. So just one question, like I was exploring the microservice and all stuff. So the suppose in API gateway, I can use the same way to validate the user, like as we did in a shared library. So I can use the same way in API gateway.
Yes. See, in API gateway, right, there are two things that what you need to remember. In API gateway, you can only validate the token, but you cannot apply any kind of authorization rule, because what authorization rule is going to be there in the downstream microservices. That what API gateway doesn't aware about it. It is only going to check whether the token is valid or not. If token is valid, okay, let me give let me call the downstream microservices. Again, that downstream microservices, that service is going to do both authentication and authorization. API gateway, only authentication, validating the token. Downstream microservices, both authentication and authorization. Clear?
Yes.
That's what I have already discussed. Did you attend my microservices sessions?
No, sir. I just exploring this, so I won't attend microservice.
Right.
It was paid or it is available on YouTube?
No, these are paid sessions. I'm making some sessions at free so that important concept everybody should know. See, this is what are microservices, different services. My API gateway. In API gateway, right? I'm going to do only the authentication job. Right? There is no authorization. And in the downstream microservices, I'm going to develop authorization, authentication, and authorization. That what.
Okay,
So that is interesting. Uh,
understood.
Clear? Yeah.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, can you enroll to your microservice session, paid my session for the
You
microservice?
just you have my number.
Yes.
Yes, I have it. Yes,
You just ping me personally, right? That
yes,
what we'll discuss, right? It doesn't
yes.
make sense to discuss here now. Okay.
So
Okay,
is there any
Now,
new batch going to be start from microservice, sir, in upcoming?
please ping me in personally regarding those questions, because here we need to discuss related to what I can say
Okay. Okay.
JWT
okay,
authentication. And if you are discussing such thing, it will make a waste of time for other members, right? So let me start with it. Shall we proceed for another 1 hour? Are you getting bored or are you understanding the concept?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
might be
yes, sir.
interesting.
Fine,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So now because what I'm developing, complete real-time application. Now what I
Yes,
have
yes.
done, I have developed only the shared library. Now how to use that shared library in my authentication server? How the authentication server is going to generate the tokens, right? And all these things we are going to develop. Again, how you should define the authentication server database as per the industry standard. What are the things you need to take into consideration? Let us try to proceed and understand all these things. So first of all, what I'm going to do within this within this solution, I'm going to add one project. Again, at this time, it is going to be Web API project, ASP.NET Core VPP. I'm providing the project name as a Auth Server. Okay, let me create this project. And within this project, now I'm going to deal with SQL Server database. So for this purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to install these three packages. One is the core package, which is going to provide a core, LinQ, DBset, all these things. One is for database provider, which will be used for converting our LinQ query to SQL Server related commands. And another one is the tools package, which is specifically used for generating the migration files. For example, in the Visual Studio command prompt, right, or you can say package manager also console, I want to execute add migration command, I want to execute update the database, I want to use remove migration. So for that purpose, this package is required. And this pcrypted.net next package, it is basically a package for converting a plain string to hash based. For example, the password. Whatever the password I'm going to store, I'm not going to store the user password in plain text. Rather than plain text, I want to generate a hashed version of that password. Similarly, client secret. I'm not going to store the client secret in plain text. I want to generate a hashed version of that secret, and that hashed data I'm going to store in the database. So for doing that hashing and again verifying that hashing, I'm going to make use of this basic not dot next library. So let us first install these packages. So let me go ahead, and these packages I need to install in which project? It should be installed in the authentication server project. Clear? So this is the core package. Clear? What is the use of each package? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
This is going to be tools package, and this is going to be the package for converting, generating the hash value. Okay. So these are the packages. Now what I need to do, as per the industry standard, right, and clean architecture, your project should be in a proper structure. So how the structure should be? So you should have a controller folder, which is by default created, where you are going to define the controller. You have to create a folder called data, where you need to define your DB context class. Entities, whatever all models your application have, for which you want to create a database table, that needs to be created within the entities folder. DTOs, right? DTOs means it is a lightweight model, right, which is basically used for exchanging the data. Again, within the DTOs folder, I need to create two more subfolder. One is request, where I need to define the request data DTOs. And within the response folder, I need to define my response DTOs. So the request DTO are going to be associated with the validation rules, that is going to be decorated with the data annotation attribute. And response, they are free from any kind of a validation rule. Again, I need to define a services folder, where I need to define again two more folder. One is interface, where I need to define the contract, and another one is implementation. The actual business logic is going to be defined within the implementation. Security related right class files like password hashing, refresh token generator, JWT token generator, client secret hashing. Right, for this, whatever helper classes are required, that's what I need to create within the security folder. Again, whatever the class file I'm going to generate, it should be based on interface, so that I can unit test that class file easily. Next, middleware, right? Any custom middleware you want to create, that must be created here. Again, we are going to create one global exception handling middleware. Any unhandled exception that occurred within our application, that is going to be handled by this middleware. One common folder I'm going to create, where it is going to store the common helper classes. For example, I want to return a custom exception class. I want to return a custom response type for all the endpoints, right? So this class file and this one I'm going to create it within the project folder. Clear? The project structure is clear. Is this
Sir.
how you are
Yes,
developing the application or not?
yes. Clear, sir.
Right. So let us proceed and do this thing. So first of all, what I need to do, I need to add a reference to this shared project. Why? Now, because whatever the option classes I define, whatever the extension method I define, I want to use that within the Authority server. Plus, this JWT package also I need. So I'm not going to install this package. Already that package is installed. When I add a reference to this package is also automatically available within my authentication server. So first of all, add a project reference. So project reference to which project? JWT dot shared. So whatever the files we define, that's what I can reuse within my authentication server project. So once we created this, right, next what I need to do, I need to create this folder structure. So controller folder is already there. So let me create my other folders, right? Let me set this as the startup project, right? So let me create the data folder where I need to create my data, DB context. I need to create my, right, what I can say, entities folder where I need to create all my entities. I need to create my DTOs folder. Again, within the DTOs folder, I need to create two more subfolder. One is request. Another one is going to be responses. Again, I need to create another services folder. Within the services folder, I need to create one interfaces folder. And within the services folder, I also need to create another folder that is going to be implementations folder. I need to create another folder for all the custom middlewares. I need to create another folder, right, for all the security related helper classes. Security, right? I need to create another folder that is called common. And in common, right, we need to create two more subfolders, right? So we have created controller data, entities, DTO, services we created, security created, common. So one is exception and another one is going to be a result. So within the common folder, I need to create two more subfolder. One is exception and another one is result. Clear? This folder structure is clear to everybody. What we are going to create inside each folder, is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes.
So this is as per the industry standard. We are not going to, we are completely defining the responsibility separately. Single responsibility principle is most common whenever you are developing any real-time application, and managing the class file in a proper folder structure will make you understand the project very easily, right? So based on the folders, we need to define the responsibility now. Now, first of all, we need to define the app settings.json file. So in JSON file, right, what I'm going to do, please observe. So this is going to my app settings.json file. So within this JSON file, auth, A-U-T-H-E, I'm providing the database name as authentication server DB, right? So any name you can give. And here, issuer, you can see authentication server, client apps. This is going to my 32-bit secret key. How to generate this key, I will tell you. And this is going to my access token in minutes, days to expire, required HTTP false. If you want to make this true, you can true, because we are going to run the application using HTTPS protocol. Save the token so that the down right, you can reuse that token within the action method. You can call other action method right from other services. So add policies, whatever the policy defined in the right, what I can say, shared library I want to use, and I want to enable log, and the log is going to be generated using this class name, right? I mean this category name JWT here. So this is what I have provided. Clear? This part is clear?
Sir, hello.
Yes.
Can access token also define inside the claim? Here inside the JWT, we are
No, see,
define
see,
access.
see, see, you just tell me, am I going to pass that refresh token to, right, what I can say, any uh, resource server? So claim is not associated. So what is your token? Token means it is going to contain a claim. So what is your query? Can you please repeat?
Access token, like the sorry, expiration time or access token minute. So I'm confusing sir here. Inside the JWT, access token minute we are defined 15 minutes, no?
So basically, this is going to tell how long this access token is going
Okay,
to
okay.
valid.
Yes, yes, sir. Understand, sir. Understand. Thank you.
And days to experiments, how long this refresh token is going to be valid.
Yes, yes, sir.
So this is
Understand.
15 minutes and this is days.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now once this is done, next what we need to do, we need to define our entities, right? So let me start directly creating the entities and I will make you understand client app. So let me start with the entities, create one class file. So this client app basically going to contain the client information. For example, mobile, iOS, Android, right? Whatever all client, that information I'm going to store one unique client ID. So this is going to be unique client name, any name you can provide. So client ID, client name. So like put this at above here so that ID name, client ID, client secret. These are going to be unique for client, whether this client is active and when it is created. This client secret has, right? We will share the client secret plain text to the client, but we will store that associated hash in the database. So you have to remember, as a user, you know the password. As a customer, you know the password. But in the database, what you are storing related to that password? You are storing that password as it is, or you are storing that, right, what I can say, password in hash format.
Encrypted
Hash
format.
encrypted format.
Not encrypted.
Hash format.
Don't ever store password in encrypted format. Why? Because that can be decrypted. We always store the password and right information in the form of a hash. Right? By generating a hash value. What is the difference between encrypted and hash? Encrypted means that can be decrypted to its original value. Hash means what? That can never be decrypted to its right original value. Only one-way traffic is there with hash. Two-way traffic is there with what I can say encryption. And we only need the one-way traffic. If our database is compromised, then nobody should know what is the actual password or what is the actual secret key, right, value. So that is the reason why that password we are going to store in hash format, that client secret we are going to store in hash format. So this is your name. So you can consider this is very similar to a user. What is your name? This client ID means it can be your unique identifier like email ID. So here we are going to generate this thing. We are going to generate this thing. Securely, we are going to share this information to the client. So that the client application, whenever they are sending the data, they can include this client ID and the client secret, not the secret hash. Secret hash going to be stored in the database. Secret will be shared to the client. So how to generate that client ID and the client secret, I'm also going to show you. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right? So whenever you are implementing any kind of application, validating the user token is fine. But while I'm generating the token, whether that request is coming from a valid client, that validation is also important. And for that purpose, we need this client ID and the client secret. Clear?
So, sir, client ID and client secret that will be created by the server, right?
Yes, that is only going to be created by the server. And that client ID, client secret, we are going to share to the client, and that secret hash we are going to store in the database.
Okay.
Right? Even if you write, that is what you need to remember. So next, I'm going to create my app user. So whatever the user information, that what we are going to store, that what we are going to define within this class file, app user. Okay. So what is the ID? First name, last name, email, phone number, again password in hash format, whether this user active, when this user created. And one user can be associated with multiple role. So one to many relationship between user and role. So that is the reason why I'm having one what I can say collection property of a app user role. So this app user role, it is a mapping table going to define the relationship between user and role. And as we are going to define many to many relationship between user and role, that is one user can be associated with multiple roles, and the one role can be defined or can be assigned to multiple users. For that purpose, we are going to create a mapping table. So this is going to be user role mapping table. Clear? Clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Right? And user session. So one user can have a multiple sessions. For example, if you typically take the example of any kind of applications, right? Amazon having the website, Amazon having the Android app, Amazon having the iOS app. In Amazon website, you can log in. One session is going to be created. From Amazon, right? What I can say, Android app, you log in, another session is going to be created. From Amazon, iOS app, you log in, another session is going to be created. Means what? Now, one user can be associated with multiple sessions. Sometimes, some of the application they are saying whenever you are resetting the password or doing something, right? They're asking, do you want to log out from all the devices? That kind of functionality have you ever faced? Do you want to log out from all the devices? All the devices means what? For that particular user, whatever all sessions are associated, from all the sessions, it is going to make that refresh token invalid. So that means for one session, we can have for one user, we can have a multiple sessions, and that information we are going to store within this user session step. Clear? Clear or not?
Yes.
Right. Next, we need to create app role, whatever the master role information you want to store, that what you can define here. So this
Can you
is
repeat
going
the
to
user session, sir, once again? What is the context that you are saying?
be, as a user, you can log in from multiple applications. You can log in from Android, you can log in from iOS, you can log in from web. Then for each type of application, it is going to create a different or it is going to create a separate session in the database. But all these sessions are associated with a single user or not. So if you want to know from which devices I logged in, right? Then that session information you can get it. It is also possible that you logged into your Amazon website, right? You are having two laptops, right? And one
Yeah.
desktop. From each laptop you log in, one session is going to be created for that particular device. From different laptop, different session. Right? So you can manage multiple sessions, right? How? Now by creating a separate user session table where you are going to store all the right logged in session information related to
Okay.
a particular user.
Yeah, got it. Thank
Right?
you.
Right? Again, this session concept going to be changed from application type to application type. For example, if you want to ensure only one active session, if you logged in using right website, then you cannot log in using mobile app. For example, banking. Does banking allow you to create two sessions at the same time?
No,
No.
no.
No,
So
sir.
basically, it is up to you. But if you take the example of any social media website, right, Facebook, or if you take the example of Amazon, they are allowing. So it is basically your business logic, how you are going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
manage the session.
Yeah,
Clear?
got it. Yeah, got
Sir,
it.
one question. So here client nothing but the client application.
Yes. Client is nothing but the client application. That can be, right, you can consider this is going to be web, this is going to be Android, this is going to be iOS.
Thank you.
This is going to be desktop, right? Any third party, right? Anyone, third party
Thank you, sir.
applications. Clear?
Here, what
And
is the
here,
client and client?
sorry, sorry.
Client ID and client secret?
So when I discussed the client ID and client secret, where are you at that time?
No,
So
it is
you just tell
considered.
me. See, basically, so whenever you are creating this app user, this email ID is going to be unique or not? Why we are
Yes,
creating this uniqueness, unique email ID? Why we are taking?
to register once.
Sorry, because we
To
want to
make sure the
because we want to identify each user uniquely,
yeah
right? Similarly, why we are storing this password?
authentication.
With email ID, I can identify uniquely. And why we are storing this password? To ensure when the user logged into the system, whatever the password, right, whether the user who actually won the account, he is logging or not. For that purpose, we are storing this password. Similarly, when the client wants to access my application, I also need the same concept or not, right? Anyone cannot access my application. If you are accessing, prove that you are a valid client for my application. How? Now, for each right, whenever you are generating the token, please share your client ID and the client secret so that I can right, verify whether the request is coming from a valid client or not. That uniqueness we are going to manage. Clear?
Okay,
The
sir.
client
Okay.
and within the client application, this user concept will come into the picture. And now we are going to create the roles, right? Whatever the role master table we are going to create, we are going to store ID, name, description, is active, and one role can be associated with multiple users. So that mapping table is going to be this app user role, and this is going to be app user role. So that mapping table between role and user is going to be app user role, which is going to store many data. So next, what I need to do, I need to create my app user role entity. So this is going to be ID, username, role ID, role assigned by user ID, assigned UTC, nodes. So these are the data. So user ID and role ID, this is going to be the right what I can say. Whenever I'm assigning a role, this is user ID and role ID, they are going to be important. They are going to be also the foreign key. User ID pointing to the user table, role ID pointing to the role table. When this assigned done, right? Sorry, who done this assignment, and when it is done, any additional note if you want to provide, right? At what you can provide. For example, if one admin they are assigning one user with some role, then why you are assigning that notes you can provide. Who assigned this role? When assigned this important auditing information, you need to put inside the mapping table. Then user session. This is important, guys. Remember all the right critical information that what you need to store related to the right user session, right? Let me show you what are the data you want to store, right? So first of all, that user ID, and this session is for which client application. One user can have a client ID, web client ID, what I can say, Android client ID, right? What I can say, any client ID, and this device ID, it is also going to be unique, right? Right, device ID is going to be unique. Which needs to be sent by the client. For example, Android app, that device ID, device, some unique information that what they needs to provide. And this is going to my rate user agent. If you want, you can make this as nullable. That is fine. User agent for web application, you will get user agent. For web application, what is the IP address? That what you can also store. From this IP address, I can fetch that location, state, the city, state, country data. That what I can retrieve and I can store. When the user logged in, last time when it is being seen, right? I mean, when it is logged in, at that time I will create one session. That time I'm going to store here. If this token is being revoked, when it is being revoked, if it is revoked, then each active is going to be read false. Otherwise, it is going to true, and one session can have multiple refresh token, right? For each session, every time I access the right application by passing my refresh token, it will generate a new access token, again a new refresh token. That means for the same session, it can have multiple refresh tokens, right? So that collection I'm going to manage, right? One session can have a multiple refresh token. Each time, first time one access token generated, it will make an entry into this refresh token. So based on the refresh token, you generate one access token. One access token means again another refresh token will be generated, and that refresh token it is going to stored into the refresh tokens table. So how it is going to generate? Let us see. So next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create my refresh tokens table. And within this refresh token table, I'm going to store the user related information, right? So what user related information? So first of all, what session ID, that what I'm going to get from here. Session ID, this is going to my user session ID. Then that is going to be token hash. So whatever the token, that hash value I'm going to store here. So this token is generated for the parent token. If first time it is creating, then parent token ID is going to be null. If it is generated second time, then what is the parent token ID and what is the parent token value? That is what it is going to store. Then when it is created, when this token is going to be expired, is this token revoked? If it is revoked, what is the revoked region? And whether the token expired, whether the token revoked, or whether the token ejected. Guys, remember, these are not going to be properties in the database. These are some of the, right, I mean, these are not going to be created as a columns in the database. Some properties we computed properties we defined here, that value we are going to use within our application. So don't need to write this logic again and again. I can access these properties. They will get me the data right as per the current value, right? So here what is important now, based on the session ID, right? User session, I will get the user ID, and based on the user ID, I can get the user information from the database and I can create the clear.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes.
Why we need to use a parent token?
If, for example, right, for example, let me give you the that clarity. Right. See, every time I pass my refresh token to the database, this is my parent reference token ID. So it will create a new access token and it will also give me a new refresh token. So that new refresh token is being generated based on which parent token, that information I need to track. Right. And for that purpose, I'm providing this parent token ID. If you don't want this thing, you can remove this thing. That is fine. But if I'm generating one new refresh token, then for what is the old refresh token, that what I need to store. If you are not storing, you can remove, no issue. But if you are storing, that is good. Clear?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you, sir.
So because why I'm saying, we are going to develop as per the industry standard. That is the reason why I'm following this approach. Now, for every API endpoint, I want to return a common result, and that result is going to be defined by my API response class. That API response class is going to provide two methods. One is for the success, and another one is for the fail. In case of a success, whatever the T data, that is the actual data, that what it is going to return, message, whatever the information you provided is success, it is going to true. And for fail, it is going to return is successful and whatever the failure message. And this is a generic class. What type of data you want to return? While creating an instance, you need to specify that type. So this is going to my generic type, that what all the endpoint is going to return, so that the client will get a constant response per month. Clear? Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
Now I'm going to create my exception class. Any exception occurred right from my application, I can handle that using my custom exception class. This is not mandatory. Good to write, right? For example, a custom exception you want to return. So you can throw this app exception class where you need to provide what is the message and status code, right? Accordingly, it will return that appropriate message with the status code. This message is required, what I'm calling to the base class, and the status code what I want to return from the app exception. This is going to my right common exception. Then I need to create my exception handler, right? Whatever all my application code, that code I need to execute, uh, right? That code should, my application code execution should start from this, middleware component. So let me define this middleware component. So you can see this is a custom middleware component. So to this custom middleware component, what I'm doing here, please observe, I'm passing my request to delegate. This request to delegate is nothing but containing the next middleware component, that what it is going to execute. This logger for logging the message to the logger, initializing this through the dependency injection. This invoke method will invoke automatically when I register this one in the application processing pipeline. The framework will invoke this invoke method. And this is my try block and this is my catch block. So within the try block, I'm calling the next middleware component. So basically, my complete application code execution going to be within this try block. If any unhandled exception occurred, right? If there is a up exception, I'm handling that. This is going to be a handled exception. If not up, then it can be unhandled exception. That what also I'm handling here. So in up exception, I'm providing a logging statement why this exception thrown, where this exception thrown, that information I'm logging here. And finally, I'm writing that context, right? HTTP context object. And this is the status code, that what I'm going to get from this app exception and the message, right? And in case of exception, this is unhandled exception. So why I'm putting logging here? Because my application handled this exception. Why I'm putting error here? Because this is a unhandled exception. And in unhandled exception, again, I'm logging the exception details and I'm writing this error message to the response. And this error, this is a private helper method. How it is going to write the message? First of all, it will check response has not started. If response already started, means header body are already set. I'm not going to do anything. If it is not set, then please clear the response. Set the status code, whatever the status code you are getting. Content type is going to be application/liaison. Payload, I'm calling this API response.fail method, which we have already defined here. And finally, we are converting this payload into JSON by writing that payload into the response object. So this is going to my custom middleware component, which is going to handle all the unhandled exception within my application. Clear?
Here you said app exception is
So this is the
unhandled.
custom exception class we created.
Okay. How
Right, my application sometimes throw this exception, which is handled by my application.
Okay.
Some
So
unhandled
somewhere
exception is going to be
we
for
write the
unhandled
app exception ourselves, right? When we know the issues. That's the
exactly.
case, right?
This is handled exception. This is unhandled exception. That is the reason why. For handled exception, I'm writing this login. This is unhandled exception, unknown exception, I'm using error. Clear? Clear or not?
Yeah.
So next what I'm going to do, okay, let me restart this recording.